First thing we want to talk about tonight, guys, is these staff hires. Dabo Sweeney and Clemson as a whole, as a football program, as you mentioned earlier, Jordan, has really won the offseason. Dabo has been making moves left and right, starting with letting go of Wes Goodwin as defensive coordinator, bringing in Tom Allen from Penn State, a big-time hire, a seasoned guy, a guy that has been at the head coaching level, at the Power 5 level, and had a lot of success and has a long track record of putting very high-level defenses on the field. So it starts with that kind of in this offseason, but it has not ended there. Dabo Sweeney continually adding to his head coaching staff, bringing on a lot more experience and bringing on different type of guys. You think about a guy like Mike Houston, that just got brought on as a defensive analyst that's going to kind of assist Tom Allen on that defensive side of the ball and constructing this new version of the Clemson defense that will be the 2025 Clemson defense. And he comes in touting a 106-62 head coaching record overall, spent a lot of time at the FCS level, spent some time at the FBS level at ECU, spent 6 seasons there, won a national championship with JMU. So he's a very experienced guy, very good defensive mind. What are your thoughts on Clemson adding Mike Houston and what that means for Clemson going forward as a football program? And how big is this that Dabo continues to add guys that are very seasoned and really know what they're doing and are experts in their craft?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing Dabo take advantage of the new rules with regards to staff, and that's something that we talked about when that was announced. Was something that we felt like Clemson and Dabo was uniquely positioned to take advantage of, because there are a lot of coaches that want to come to Clemson. Like that's something we've talked about. I mean, which is why we were kind of frustrated, at times with the internal promotions, and some of them worked out, some of them didn't. Obviously, and the more recent ones kind of cost you in some recent years. But I say that to say that Dabo really, really wanted to make sure that this defense was special.
Mm-hmm.
With everything you have coming back on the defensive line, with everything that you bring back at linebacker and in the secondary, like this was, and with all the struggles that you had this past season, I think Dabo knew that, increasing the quality of the brain trust that you have on your defensive staff was only going to be a positive. And to get a guy like Mike Houston, who was just, recently let go from ECU after, he kind of turned that program around a little bit. They were kind of in a bad way when he got there. I think he left that program in a better spot than he left it. Had a couple of 8-win seasons there, some bowl wins, more success than a lot of coaches have had there in quite some time.
Yeah, tough place to coach. I mean,
it is. It is. It's not. It's not the days of CJ2K and those teams anymore. And so he really did I thought he did a pretty admirable job, and it kind of tailed off at the end. But you already mentioned his success at at the FCS and D2 level at Lenoir-Rhyne. So like he was a very, very. He's been in the coaching world a long time, one of the more respected minds in college football, and to add him to the staff in an unpaid position, I should say, as well. I think that's massive. Dabo's a fun coach to work for, compared to a lot of other coaches, just because he does emphasize the work-life balance that we've talked about, and why Clemson is such an attractive place for assistants. Clemson was is kind of in a unique advantage to kind of do that, because they have the backing and support. A lot of coaches want to come work for him and kind of see how he runs a program.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's I think Clemson was uniquely positioned to do that. And Mike Houston is a big time hire.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge hire. I think it's going to be a pivotal point for the defense to just have another great defensive mind in there to just take another look at schemes and adjustments and things that could help this defense adjust within a game, which is something that we struggled with immensely last year. We could not adjust. We kind of rolled out there with the game plan that we had, and that was what it was for that game. And there was very little, if at all, any adjustments during last season when it came to Wes Goodwin being at the helm. So you would think with Tom Allen and some of the guys that Dabo is putting around him to take some of the load off of him and help him out with things that he's going to need help with. It's going to be huge. He comes with his a lot of success as a head coach, a lot of success on the defensive side of the ball. But another guy that Dabo brought along, Lonnie Galloway, most recently at UNC, brought him on as an offensive analyst. So he'll be doing the same type of thing that Mike Houston is doing for the defense. He'll be doing on the offensive side, kind of assisting Garrett Riley, being that offensive analyst, the guy that can look 2-3 games ahead, try to scout trends, try to look at tendencies that Clemson is doing to try to mix it up and continually confuse defenses. Obviously, had stints at Wake Forest and Louisville. Your thoughts on Dabo's addition to this offensive staff and bringing on Lonnie Galloway for the 25 season as an offensive analyst?
Yeah, Lonnie Galloway, if you are, familiar with the North Carolina high school, recruiting circles, I mean, he's a guy that everybody knows. He is a face that everybody knows. He was at North Carolina, obviously, most recently as their wide receivers coach. He's a guy that has a lot of connections in the state. And so, not only is he going to add to the offensive brain trust, like you mentioned, like has the recruiting connections that I think are going to be important for Clemson in these next coming cycles, because especially in the Charlotte area where, Clemson was known to kind of go and get whoever they want. But in recent years, you've had programs, North Carolina has kind of gotten back into it. But really the biggest threat in recent years in the Charlotte area has been Tennessee. Tennessee has gone in and won a few recruiting battles for some big time prospects in Charlotte. And so Lonnie Galloway has a lot of connections in the area. It's a big deal. And he's also going to help coach up the wide receivers and assist with Tyler Grisham. And he's a guy that has a really, really good background and track record with wide receivers, recruiting them and development. So another big time hire.
Yeah, you can certainly see the recruiting aspect being a big part of why Dabo Swinney decided to bring him on, but he'll certainly add some to the on the field product as well, as far as game planning and helping to coach those wide receivers. And to your point earlier, you're really starting to see how big of a rule change it was with the coaching staffs and the NCAA and that the rule change that happened and how it's just expanded. And Dabo's certainly taking advantage of that by bringing on Mike Houston and Lonnie Galloway. And those guys are going to contribute in a big way, I think, in 2025. You can kind of see, as you mentioned before, Clemson kind of pushing all their chips to the center of the table for 2025. Not that it's a national championship or bust season. I'm not there yet. I'm not saying Clemson's going to win a national championship in 2025, but you can certainly see the urgency from Dabo Swinney, this coaching staff, bringing on the extra experience to try to make this defensive transition as seamless as possible and to try to interject even more life into that offense, because 2025 is going to be a big year for Clemson. We lose a ton of talent after this season, so you really want to capitalize on it while it's here. And you can certainly see Dabo with a sense of urgency heading into the 2025 season. But with all those new challenges, you have started to see a lot of college football programs, especially your major college football programs, start to construct what I would call, a front office, similar to an NFL team that has a front office that kind of deals with player personnel and scouting and player acquisition and contracts. And you think about this house settlement that's coming up that we assume is going to hit in July, and that's going to bring a whole new slew of good things, but it'll bring challenges with it, because you're going to have to figure out how to use this $20+ million and how you're going to divvy it up amongst your team. And when you think about that, all that landing at the feet of just one guy, a head coach, is too much to ask of one person. So Jordan Sorrells has been on the staff for a little while. He helped out with roster construction and management this year, but Dabo brings in a new guy to kind of help with this, and he's going to be the director of player evaluation and acquisition, Kevin Kelly, most recently of the Los Angeles Chargers, front office guy, scouting guy, 20-plus years of experience scouting college players. What does this mean for Clemson's program going forward? What kind of role do you think he plays? And, what do you envision him actually doing for Clemson football when it comes to that evaluating and acquisition piece?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Jordan Sorrells has been kind of the general manager of the program. Well, this past season, that was kind of his new title. But yeah, I believe Kevin Kelly is coming in and he's going to work alongside him. And, I think Kevin's job is, of course, he's going to be, it's in the name, player evaluation and scouting. I think he's definitely going to have a big hand in that. But I also think he's going to be one of those guys that is involved with, NIL and kind of, not facilitating those deals. So you can't, technically not allowed to do that. But he will have a hand in and have a close working relationship with the 110 Society and kind of, identifying guys and kind of making sure that they will be, properly, compensated and all of that when it comes to, their recruitment and ultimately signing them. So I think he's going to have a very multifaceted, group of responsibilities because he's going to be involved in so much from a player scouting standpoint, but also a player compensation and NIL standpoint. And I think he's also going to have a hand in identifying guys in the transfer portal.
Yep.
So, I think that is going to be another massive part of his job as well. So, he's going to be a guy that kind of takes a lot of, stuff off of Jordan's plate. Great name, by the way. And I think that's, it's massive and it looks more like a pro model. And I think you're seeing more and more teams starting to move to that, getting guys from the NFL who have a lot of experience dealing with the player compensation and the scouting aspect of, acquiring talent. And so that's just kind of what college football is now. And you're seeing Clemson kind of modernize in that respect as well. So it's a big deal.
Last question on these coaching hires, Jordan. Obviously, Clemson's been in the media quite a bit, been talked about because of Dabo Swinney's additions with, not only the defensive and offensive analyst, but also Kevin Kelly as a front office guy and just the addition of Tom Allen, all this stuff. Does any of this stuff surprise you, or what is your overall thoughts on all these changes and all this news that has come out of Clemson football since the clocks hit zero versus Texas in the college football playoff a month and a half ago, whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have seen the narrative in the media with all this news that, oh my gosh, Dabo is finally, he's finally changed and, he's done a full 180 on everything that he's talked about. And
right.
I think that's obviously a little bit overstated. If you're a person that has followed this program over the last couple of seasons, I think you've seen it hasn't been overnight, and I think that's probably why people have just not been paying attention.
Right.
And so now, with this offseason and everything kind of coming together at once, people have kind of viewed it as a 180 from Clemson when this was kind of the direction that things were headed for a little bit now. So I think it's having all this success at actually making those changes this offseason, would appear like, okay, they made a 180, but this is something that's been building for a while. And so I think you've seen that change a little bit to a greater degree than maybe some of us expected. But at the end of the day, this was something that was, this was something they were building towards for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, yes, Dabo Swinney has shifted in maybe the type of coaches that he is now hiring. Obviously, I think it is well documented on this channel, and we're not the only ones that have been saying it, but Dabo Swinney got a little too inexperienced in his coaching staff, you know, and that had to be rectified. But it has been rectified. I think a lot of these changes are due to rule changes, right? You see a lot of these analyst positions, that's due to rule changes. You see Tom Allen not being on the recruiting trail, at least the traveling recruiting trail. That's due to rule changes, right? And I like the direction that Dabo's taken the program. I was always a believer that Dabo Swinney wanted to win. I never was under the impression that he was just going to ride the ship down and watch what he built basically crumble and basically get relegated to, just another ACC football program that, is going to go to a bowl game every year. I never thought he was going to be satisfied with that. He's too competitive. I don't think he came to Clemson and built it up to the national football power that it is now, just to be like, well, I won two, so whatever. I'm going to hang out and collect my $11 million. That doesn't strike me as who Dabo is as a person or a coach. So it doesn't surprise me that he has started making changes, and he's always made it clear that he does make mistakes, but he's always going to do whatever he thinks is right for Clemson football. So, yeah, I'm happy with the changes that have been made. I can't wait to see how they all shake out. Some of them may be a hit. Some of them may not work out. But I'm excited for 2025. I think it could be a special year for our Clemson Tigers.